All right, hard surface modeling class. So, as promised, I'm going to do a quick little video for you guys to talk about what I'm looking for from your first project or your first lab, your product design assignment. Now, this is going to be due in 2 weeks on a Sunday. It should be the 13th, 11:59 at night. So you've got a gob of time to do this, but definitely don't wait around. Um, if you guys really want to focus on doing the stairs the rest of this week for your weekly model, that's fine. That's still going to leave you at least an entire week to do this product design assignment, which should be more than enough. Um, this is going to harken back to some of the jobs I've worked as a product designer back in the day, back when I first started teaching. Um, this is going to be very similar to what I would do 8-10 hours a day, but obviously on a kind of a stripped down level. So first I'm just going to go ahead and read this to you. Product design, functional design, and product visualization. You'll find a common object that you believe could be improved with an add-on. Now this could be any add-on. You could get as crazy as you want, but definitely I want you to push yourself. Um, don't just say, well, I've modeled a brick and I think this brick needs to hang on a wall, so I gave it a hook. I mean, that's not really pushing yourself. I don't know why you would hang a brick on a hook, but you get what I'm saying. Really take this as far as possible, and I'm going to show you some examples that are both practical as well as a bit fantasy based, but still really interesting, still in the realm of realism. The add-on will be based in real-world functionality and be able to be 3D printed. So real-world functionality, right? So we're not relying on magic to do a thing, right? I'm sure a lot of us enjoy games that involve magic, but in this particular area of the United States, the Northern Kentucky, Cincinnati area, there's not a whole lot of game companies locally. So being able to prove that you can make a functional design is really important. So being able to print it 3D. This means two things. One, you don't have any holes in your model. And, now, obviously, if it's a hole that a screw has to go through, right, that's fine. But the model has to be watertight, all right? So we can't see into the model itself. We can't see back faces exposed. This thing has to be able to hold water. And we want there to be thick enough walls that it can be printed. Now, generally, that depends on what kind of printer you're using, but a good rule of thumb would be don't build anything that has any surfaces thinner than maybe 1/8 of an inch. All right. All right. We'll be looking at creating a quick proxy model to scale and then creating the modification model in high enough resolution to be printed or produced at scale. Now, what does that mean? Well, if I were to model a lamp, for instance, and I decided that this lamp, however I was going to fix it up, I would probably do a quick proxy model, meaning I would do a really fast, rough mock-up, to-scale mock-up of that model, of that lamp. And then off of that, I would build whatever additions I needed, and I would start to build a real model off of that proxy model. And that's basically just to kind of help me figure out how things work. Um, in one class, I built like a pen holder that attached to a lamp. In other classes, I've built an assembly that helped you hang your spray bottle inside of the shower. In my real life, in my jobs, I've built everything from trophies to fully functioning um, galaxies. It had a little crank and all the planets spun around, which was pretty cool. Apparently the client had it printed, so that was neat. So the proxy models are a close representation, but it's not going to be your finished model. You're not going to build your finished model off of that per se. You're just going to use it kind of as a scale. All right. So we're going to be modeling this in high resolution, as if you would print this, as if this would be a production model. Now, where it says a modeling prompt will be discussed in class, if we had a normal classroom setting this week, we would have talked about possibilities that you can use. One possibility from last semester was the spray bottle, right? We were a spray bottle making company, and we wanted to make the best spray bottle we could possibly make. We didn't care about the head to do the spraying. We only cared about the bottle itself, right? And the big complaints from the customer, because every new invention generally comes from a problem that needs to be solved, right? So the problem was that the handle was slippery, there weren't finger grips, there was a lot of issues. Basically, the handle would slip around while trying to use it, especially in the shower. So in last year's example, it was a tub and tile spray bottle. So your hands were already wet, and then there you are trying to spritz this stuff inside of your shower, and the handle's slipping around. All right. So to solve that problem, we created a really nice handle, and we changed some of the functionality in that process, right? So final assets. Currently, I want your .ma file. You guys know how to name these things: last name, first initial, underscore, product design, .ma, piece of cake. And then a PDF of the blueprint plus renders in a client-ready, presentable fashion, all right? So what do I mean by that? Well, we're turning in less things, but I want a really high quality from these turn-ins. I want these things portfolio ready or client ready, as I've stated. So I'll show you some examples of what I mean about the blueprints as well as client-ready renders. So if we come over here to our files, I've created a product design folder. And I've got a few examples in here that you guys can go off of. The first one, well, the first two here, this one's a really good example of a real-world product, and they've come through and they've got this interesting case, and then they came in and they used CAD or Illustrator. I've always used Illustrator, and that's what we're going to use in this class because we don't teach CAD at this school for reasons. So use Illustrator. Inside of Illustrator, you can make things that are real-world sizes, so that's not an issue. Set up your document so that it can handle real-world sizes, and then start to make your little pieces from a top, front, and side perspective, right? So this is one reason why it's helpful to have a physical example of the thing that you're trying to improve. If I were going to try to improve another spray bottle, I would have that spray bottle in front of me. If I were to try to improve an iPhone case, I would have an iPhone case in front of me in order to get all the measurements off of, so that I could start to build this thing inside of Illustrator, so that when I take these images into Maya, I have a 2-scale image plane that I can start to model off of, right? Nothing is left to chance. Nothing is left to the imagination. In product design, you plan everything, you measure everything, and then you build it exactly as it is. I can guarantee you that whatever the measurements are in these drawings, these little renders right here, and I would say that these are renders, these little renders are to the exact same scale as what they have here inside of their drawings, right? This kind of stuff, companies buy these all the time. I mean, I don't even know what this thing is. Maybe some sort of night light, or who knows. Whatever it is, companies buy these plans and they'll send this stuff over to China or to some other factory somewhere, and then they end up producing real world versions of what you just came up with in Illustrator or CAD. All right. So this is one way to go about combining your professional renders as well as your blueprints inside of a single image, as well as coming over here, getting your name, what is this thing that you're modeling, and a brief description of what it does, right? Obviously this example is really small, so we can't really read what that says, but it doesn't matter. All we care about for this purpose, for this class, is the layout and the idea, right? The next one I want to show you is this one. Now this takes it in a kind of a sci-fi twist, but still with a very acceptable sense of realism, right? This is something you might see in a movie like Minority Report or something along those lines, right? Oblivion, some really high-level sci-fi game, right? But this thing feels like it could be real. And it started off with a webcam, right? So you have this little, what's that say, little Samsung webcam. And then this person, I think her name is Marina Ortega, she's come in and decided what would happen if this ball had wings, right? If you could fly this camera around. So she takes this ball, she removes the base because you don't need a base if this thing flies, and then she comes through and starts making mock-ups. Front, back, so here's the back, here's the front where the camera is. The side with a detached wing, right? Little arrow showing that, yep, the wing actually comes right down on top of here. And then the side from the other side, basically flipped to show what it looks like when the whole thing's assembled. That way you can tell where the offset exists. And then from the underside, which gives you a really nice vantage point of these little guys, these little arms that help to hold these helicopter wings on, or propeller wings, right? And you can also get a really nice feel for the underside shape of this little antenna or microphone, whatever that might be, the tail, essentially. All right. Now, this person finished these things off in 2D as well, so they did these nice renders in a 2D fashion. I don't need you to do these in 2D, but I need you to do this stuff down here. All right, these little blueprints, these little drawings. Show how your object is going to look from front, side, top if necessary, bottom if necessary. Usually in the real world, 3 sides is pretty well necessary. All right, so show off your blueprints, have measurements to tell how tall is this wing, right? She doesn't have that. But if I'm going to make this thing at scale, I need to know how big is each one of these objects. How big are these little propellers? How big or how long is this tail or microphone, right? So I can make everything perfectly to scale, and when I send this thing to whomever, whatever factory I send it to, they can make it perfectly to scale. All right. Now in this example, if it were me, if this were your final turn in, I would say these are lined up fine. You know, everything as far as an actual, a general presentation, it's not a bad presentation. These 2D renders would be 3D. And if it were me, I would have one probably smack in the middle or on the third, maybe a little bit larger, right? So perhaps taking up this entire quadrant. And then that would be your beauty shot, right? And then I would take and make one or two more renders over here on the side from a different angle, and I would render out a nice beauty shot, and then I would also render out a second image that showed off your topology. You guys remember how we did that in class with the Arnold shader, and it was the AI wireframe shader. So you would attach that, render it out from that same angle that you did whatever this guy over here would be, maybe a different 3/4 or a top or a side. And then in Photoshop, you just overlay those two renders on top of each other. Just make sure you don't move your camera. Set up a render camera for your beauty shot and set up a render camera for your wireframe shot. And then you can get a really nice combination of those two things. When you turn this in, you can see that they've got some little notes about the material reference and extendable legs and stuff down here. I would still ask you, instead of just having a giant 2CU, which is probably what she's calling this guy, I would tell you to do something more like this. This is far more informative, where you have a little block of text, tell me what's going on, tell me why you changed it, you know, like you're selling a product, right? Sell this thing to me. Put the name of the product here and put your name right there. You are the company making this thing, all right? And last but not least, here's a little example of something we did, or of what we did last semester. So last semester, the blueprint was kind of its own turn-in. It was its own page in a 2-page PDF. You can choose to do 2 pages where it's just all of your blueprints on one page, and then kind of your show-off page, your advertising page on the second page, or you can combine them as we spoke before, right? This guy here, this was the water bottle, or the spray bottle, and you can see that in this example I chose to come in, instead of having a blocky spray where this line right here kind of came straight down and there was nothing on the back, I came in, I added this indent, and then I added some little finger grippies right here, and then on the back side I cut out this chunk, and then I added in this separate piece, which is a thick piece of rubber with a bunch of little bumps on it. That way, when the hand grabs, you've got some heavily textured rubber, which generally rubber doesn't get slippery, and you can go on if you wanted to and talk about, you know, special grade of rubber that resists slip and texture that resists slip, as well as improved finger grips. You know, think of this like you're a marketing person as well as a product designer. In our world, we kind of have to be able to fill a lot of shoes, all right? And then you can see I designed this background, and I designed this whole kind of pseudo bathroom feel. You know, when you think clean, when you think bathroom, you think blue. So I made the bottle blue, a nice blue plastic. I put it in a light blue background so it felt clean. And then I threw out extreme grip spray bottle, right? Because I kind of wanted it to be fun. But also, if I'm only selling, you know, if my whole company only sells spray bottles, you know, that's basically what I've got to work with. So Anyway, added some textures, pulled this thing together, and if it were, this would be the advertisement, right? This is what I would shoot to them as the beauty piece. They would see this and go, whoa, that's a crazy bottle. And then they would dive into my second page, and I would give them all the details about what this does, and I would have probably something like this guy sitting off to the side, and then a bunch of information, maybe some blueprints, to tell them what was going on, right? So you've got currently about a week and a half to do this thing until the 13th, which is more than enough time to do it. Definitely don't dilly-dally. We'll be talking about this and your progress in class on Wednesday. Now, I realize some of you guys are missing out on the Monday class. For those of you guys who are supposed to be here on Monday when we have Labor Day and we're not going to be having school, go ahead. Well, all of you guys can do this. Email me your progress. I don't care about the model right now. I mean, I care about it. But send me some renders. Send me something that's easy to look at. If you have questions on the model, obviously send it to me and I'll evaluate it. But give me an idea of what you're planning on doing. Give me an idea of how you're feeling about the process, right? If you have questions on the process. For those of you who come in on Wednesdays, by all means, definitely be, I would say, 50-60% done with this process so that I can look at it and give you a good feel for what direction you're going. All right? All right. If you have any questions, let me know. Send me an email, and I'll do my best to answer them. All right. Have a great weekend.